Chapter. The majority, overwhelming majority of the 90 million people who have not been vaccinated, I hope we can start to get some good control in the spring of 2022.
Some say the new FDA approval for the Pfizer vaccine helped convince them to get the shot. And for the millions of fully vaccinated, that third
Deanne, can you please mute?
official
Sorry, I thought it was.
in September. Now,
Thank you.
Hello.
Hey, Rob. Well,
Hey, John.
Hey, Rob. How's it going?
Tremendous. So, hey, Ken Brown, are you got a minute?
Which one? Oh, there we go.
Oh, I know, right? That's right. John Jennings, police judge pro tem.
Will the real Kent Brown stand up?
Right, exactly. So, I had some constituents ask me about what's going on Biddle Street, right at the top of 11th, and I just thought I'd just doing my job. That's all.
I know we had a water leak at 8th in the 800 block of Biddle.
Yeah, you did. I walked past it, but I think that was fixed today.
Yeah. I think
But
Baker
on the
got
other
that
side of the
finished.
Capital Prize mine, at the top of the 11th Street, where 11th and Biddle meet.
Right.
Like Johnny Sanders is just clearing out. Johnny's hired Steve. Oh, Steve Flexing,
Oh,
clearing out the woods.
that I don't know. I don't think
Okay.
I've heard anything.
Well, let me do my job. I'm letting you know.
I'll have to go walk there and go,
Citizens arrest. Citizens
what
arrest.
you doing?
Right. All right, I'm gonna officially shut up.
Whoa.
Somebody told me
Official, that's official, right?
How long is it for?
Rob, I've got the answer.
Play it on.
Someone's making a parking spot.
You know-
And it's not Sanford, it's another neighbor.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I thought Johnny owned that.
it's Bundy. So,
Got it.
oh, now
Well, there you have it,
Mary's,
folks.
Mary's telling me no. I should just have her talk. Not that Mary Smith, but then there's Mary Sims, so.
I
Okay,
tell you no too.
I'm here now. So no, it's Chris Sanford that you're thinking of, not Johnny Sanford.
Right,
Number
right.
one. Number two, it's Bundy's that own the property and they're having a parking spot made down below because they are the house below Chris Sanford's.
Got it.
Okay.
Yep. There you have it. Well, I know what to tell folks. I'm your informative select.
That is not my dog.
We have
Mine
cats.
is-
Sounds like it is.
It could be, but it's not.
Okay, all right. You friends over or something?
I try to mute mine.
Well, it looks like we're at 6 o'clock, so want to get this meeting started?
Let's do it.
Okay. I'm called to order the meeting on August 24th, 2021 at 6 p.m. It's the Town of Georgetown Board of Selectmen meeting. I'll do a roll call here. Looks like I see maybe Deanne Powell was muted.
John, you may want to do the Pledge of Allegiance first.
Okay, well, we can do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I have the sound off or on. I mean,
Everybody ready?
Sure, let's do it.
All right, I pledge allegiance
To the
to the
flag
flag
of the United
United States
States of America,
America,
and to the republic
for which it
for which it
stands,
stands, one nation, under
under God,
God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I always wonder if I'm going to be able to remember that.
need a script.
For me, yes. I never did master Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Start working on that now.
I think it's too late. All right, how about a roll call now? Do you want to do that, Jennifer?
Sure, I can do that. Deanne Powell,
Here,
Rob Connell,
here.
Rich Barrows,
Here,
Mary Smith,
here,
Paul Hinchin,
Here.
and we have Police Judge Pro Tem John Jennings.
Here.
And
Thank you, Jennifer.
absent is, you're welcome.
Absent is Lynette. Okay, so we have the agenda. I noticed we're going to add an executive session. Was there anything else that needed to be added?
No, it's my request. I've spoken to town administrator, my request for a executive session for conference under the CRS 24-64024B and F with myself, town attorney, and town administrator receive legal advice on and for a personal matter, the town administrator contract. And I'll ask the meeting be adjourned after the conclusion of executive session, but when we get to the point for the motion, I'll have that available. But I'd like that added to the agenda as is required at the beginning of the meeting. We indicate what's added, and that's what I'd like to add.
I'm good with that.
Thank you.
Anything else anybody needs to add?
I make a motion to accept the amended agenda.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Thanks, Rich. Okay, so we have the motion and the second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And just FYI, everybody, I did send out a link to the executive session just at about 5:30, so you should have all received it by now.
I got mine.
Oh, except for Jerry. Oops, Jerry,
Yep.
I'm sorry. I forgot you.
Fine, thanks.
I didn't get one, or if I did, I don't know about it.
Well, check your email,
Yeah,
and I'll
we'll-
send you yours, Jerry. Sorry.
Thanks. We'll confirm at the
I'll
end
try
of,
it.
at the end of the public meeting, we'll confirm that everybody got the link.
Okay.
And John, as you're going through the motions and votes tonight to assist Jennifer, just make sure you ask any opposed. And that way, sometimes when people vote orally and you don't, it's just Jennifer needs to have heard whether there are any opposed. Thank you.
Will do. I don't think
Okay.
there was any opposed for the
I
agenda.
am,
You're opposed to the agenda approval?
yeah.
Deanne Powell's opposed to the agenda approval. I guess we can move on to audience. So that was 1 opposed and 5 for. We can move on to audience business. Do we have any audience?
We do not have any audience business. We have one person in the audience, but she does not wish to speak. So, thank
Okay.
you.
You'll have to, I can't see if we have audience on my little screen. So if you guys see somebody that needs to chat, let me know.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll move on to the payables from 8/6 to 8/19. Has everybody read through the payables? Did anybody have any comments they'd like? Not seeing anybody having any questions about the payables. Okay, so maybe
Proper motion would be to approve tables 8/6/21 through 8/19/21.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
the motion was made by Rob, second with Deanne. Let's have a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Looks unanimous. I'm not seeing any nays. Any nays? It's unanimous. Okay, so we move on to the minutes from 8/10/21 regular scheduled minute meetings. Any comments on the minutes? Corrections?
Excuse me, John. Lynette did give me one correction,
Mm-hmm.
and that was under the food truck recommendation from the Business Promotion Commission. In the motion to change 5 were in favor to 4 were in favor because we had one missing board member.
Okay. Let's see. There was, I know this is going to be shocking, you guys, but I actually have one that I had a little trouble with the wording. It was the food truck recommendation from the business promotion. It's about the third sentence down. And business promotion commission member appeared to answer questions regarding the memo with suggestions for the amendment. I guess I don't even know what to do. Can we put a comma there or something, or attended or something? It just sounded better to me.
You can switch out appeared with attended. Obviously appeared to make the presentation, to answer the questions, not, it looked like maybe he answered them, but maybe he didn't.
I'm sorry, guys.
He must have majored in English. I didn't realize we had an English major.
Yeah, it hit me in the head, and that was all I had.
Change
Okay, so I'll change appeared to attended. Got it.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Jennifer.
Uh-huh.
Any other comments from anybody? Mary Smith?
I'm good.
Okay. So my little screen says everybody looks like they're pretty good. So
I'll make a
motion.
motion to approve the August 10th, 2021 minutes with the added corrections.
I'll second that.
Motion was made by Rob, second by Rich. Let's vote on it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It looks like everybody's in favor. Any nays? So all in favor. Okay. Let's see, we're going into new and unfinished business. First one is Nigel and Anderson, request for restoring historic address. Did everybody read through that? Do we want to have a staff report on that?
Yeah. Please, Judge Pro Tem Jennings. That's hard for me to say real quick.
Yeah, just call me Bub.
And members of the board. I received this letter from Smokey Anderson, and it's concurrent with the other Andersons regarding the historic numbering on the south side of 6th Street in the block where the Nigel and Anderson building is located, as well as the building next door to it. And Smokey's here as well. He can probably explain better and quicker than I can. Although I don't know. Can you hear me, Smokey?
Yeah, I'm fine if you can hear me.
Okay.
We can hear you.
Okay, good. Then thanks for entertaining this idea, and I appreciate it. The historic numbering on the street is noted on that attached Sanborn fire map from 1893. It shows that the Spruance building, which is known as a lot of people would say is the hardware building, has a number of 511, and then the grocery has the numbering of 509. Somewhere, and I can't tell you historically where it got changed over, but there's, a number of times probably in the 20s, 30s, 40s where things might have gotten jumbled up a little bit with different properties. I mean, my great-grandfather and my grandfather bought the Spruance building in 1913, and then kind of busted through that back door that goes into the hardware, and maybe it all kind of got included as one number. Anyway, I'm just trying to straighten it out so that in the future, if something changes and we want to do something different with the Spruance building or the Nigel and Anderson building, that the numbers are straight. It'd be nice if to have it straight so that I can deal a little easier with Excel and also Mary and the town of Georgetown for water and sewer. So we could keep each of those buildings separate with the correct numbers. I did realize this problem, I guess 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and actually talked to Tommy Buckley as well as Donnie Buckley about this, and Donnie was like, oh, okay, good, that's fine. And then Tommy said, well, I've been trying to get him to straighten things out for years, and he wished me good luck. So here I am with hoping Tommy's good luck brings about that change. So that's an explanation, quick and brief from me. Anybody have questions?
Is this is it like a postal thing too that you have to get going, or is it just purely a town numbering, or how does that work?
I think it's just strictly a town numbering, and once the town makes this change, the town notifies the county, and the county then proceeds to notify emergency services, Google, a few different entities, so that it gets straightened out over a very broad spectrum.
Are you acquainted with this, Kent, in the process?
Not entirely, but I do know that it does happen at times with the numbering of buildings. And this request, it's really come up for the owners of that building as far as they want to put in a covenant easement on one of the buildings, and they needed a separate address. And we've gone round and round for the last several months trying to figure out if we need to do a lot split or some other type of planning issue regarding the Spruance building, which is the Niceland Anderson building. But then they came across, they started going down that route, and then they came to this saying it really just takes different addresses. And then they had this address map from over 100 years ago, obviously, from the Sanborn map in the 1890s, that shows individual addresses for the Buckley's buildings, whereas right now it does not. And then the individual addresses for the grocery store and for the hardware store, part of the Niceland Anderson building. And this is just a request to take it all back to that original numbering of 505, 507, 509, and 511 6th Street. And Jerry and I talked about it briefly. I don't think we came to an absolute conclusion whether it's just a resolution or some other statute that it relies upon in order to do it. But
okay, Rich.
Yeah, I have a question. What does it cost the city if we do this? And then is it a precedent where a lot of the other buildings will be requesting changes also? How does that work?
I don't think. Go ahead,
I can
Jerry.
address the first part of that question, and Kent can address the second part, Rich. This is similar when you think about it. If there's new development, right, and there's a plat, it shows brand new houses, you got to assign addresses. Those are shown on the plat, and we certify the plat to record the plat, certify it to everybody, goes to EMS, goes to the Google, goes to police and fire. And I don't view this, frankly, as any different. It's sort of like a mini correction plat for purposes of numbering only. I haven't yet tonight checked statutes to see which process I would recommend for this, but I'm guessing it'll be as simple as a resolution. And I don't see a problem with being able to process. I'll figure out the right process so that when we do send the action of the town in doing it to all these people, they won't send it back and say, wrong way to do it. We'll figure that out, and that'll be easy enough, I think. Leaving the second question about how many other issues, I'll tell you, it's a case-by-case matter. The fact that you do this change here does not command you to do the next change ever. And I always tell boards that you are not required to continue to say yes to fact patterns that might be different. But Kent might have an opinion about how widespread problem or these kinds of things might be.
This is a pretty clear-cut case with prior addressing. So I don't see it, or I haven't come across it. And we come across a lot of unusual issues in Georgetown. You know, we like our property lines to go through buildings, you know, and other types of things. But I haven't come across an addressing issue like this. Now, there's a couple others that if I had the wherewithal, I would want to change, but I don't think the property owners are begging to do anything like this because it's, you know, the one thing that's the benefit to the owners here is with the PO boxes at the post office, it doesn't mess all kinds of your notification regarding billing. So it's a pretty simple change, and the only utilities that really will be affected is the town utilities. When we were going through it, Mary and I and Jennifer, as far as in the office. So I don't think there's going to be others. And as far as cost, if it's just a resolution, that's very, very minimal cost. So
My suggestion,
So,
there may
Go
be
ahead.
other debate, but the suggestion would be just to direct staff to bring forward the appropriate motion or resolution for approval by the board at a future meeting, and we can get that done. I'm sorry, John, I interrupted you.
No, it's fine.
Mary's got a question now.
Yeah, Deanne?
I just see, this seems ridiculously straightforward. Why don't we just, put a resolution through right now? What needs more time?
Well, I don't want to do that for the reason that I want to make sure that the recipients of the resolution have it in the right form, because there are protocols for this
Legal.
that you want to make sure, otherwise we're doing it twice. I really only want to recommend the board do it once.
Thank you, Jerry. So Smokey, do you have 2 meters on that building? Is that going on already?
That just started, yes. We just, the last couple of months, hooked up 2 different gas meters and 2 different electrical meters. And we're about ready to install the separate water meter.
Okay. Mary Smith, you had a question?
Yeah, just hopefully a simple question. So looking at this map, I'm guessing or just please clarify for me. Right now, 505 is what business operation? And what's 507? And what's 509? And what's 511? And I'm assuming 513 through 17 really falls into Strauss Park? Is that-
Right, that's, yeah.
So-
So, yeah, 13 and 17, or 13 and 15, I guess it is, fall into Strauss Park. Currently, I believe Donnie Buckley on one of those buildings has a number of 509. And then the next one down the street, Tommy's building is 507. And then those are the only ones that need to be corrected, because actually the Rock Shop has 501 on it, and the ice cream shop, or what is it called?
End of the line?
End of the line, thank you. The end of the line has the correct number of 503 on it.
So right now, which is your grocery store?
So
Yeah.
the grocery store has 511 hung on it.
But
And
you want to be 507,
Yeah, I want it to be 509.
509, okay.
Yeah,
And
because
so
that's
then the
what it is.
Okay. And so then the hardware store
Would be 511.
and right now it's what?
It has no number hung on
It's anonymous.
it.
Actually, the Buckley buildings are 509.
Okay,
So it kind of skips from 503 to 509. And that's why the Buckley buildings need to be involved too. So,
All right. So really, I guess we just need to direct staff to pursue this, right, Jerry?
To clean this
Yeah,
up.
proper motion, direct staff to bring forward the appropriate instrument for the board's action to approve the numbering change.
Come on, guys. Somebody say so moved.
I'll make that motion.
Rich?
I'll
Thanks,
second
Jerry.
it so that we can move along just real fast. Smokey, there's no plan on changing the street name back. You're not going to start picketing for that, are you?
No. I'm pretty sure it says 6th Street on it.
Well, I see it on the map, but before that, what was it? Wasn't it Alpine or something like that?
That'd be a long time ago.
Well,
No. I'm not
Okay.
into that one.
Okay, just want to make sure.
All right, you guys, we have a motion and a second, and we need a vote. So everybody that is in favor, raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I see everybody, it looks like. So that passes.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'll
Thank-
sign out and be gone.
Thanks, Mike.
Does this mean we're gonna finish this next Tuesday? I mean, 2 weeks from now.
It
If
means
the-
I'm
if
gonna,
the-
Yeah, it means I'm gonna prepare whatever instruments need to be done and I'll put them in the packet. That's, I believe, my instructions if,
Yes, it is.
unless, okay,
Thank you.
yep.
So now we're on agenda item number 2, road and bridge building quote for concrete. Ken, you want to handle that?
Yeah, we had purchased a steel building in order to house some of the equipment at Road and Bridge. We have not erected that building in 2 years. This is an interim step that's proposed. I asked the Alley Concrete, who has just been finishing our Gateway Bikeway project over on Argentine, done a pretty decent job. I hope you guys appreciate what's there.
Yeah.
And asked them for a quote in order to pour the caissons, which is the tubes, so they can attach the, and then have the ready to go to attach the steel building to it. And obviously the bolts within the concrete be ready to go. And then there's a separate quote to do the flat work as far as the floor of the building. And at least could be able to, then we can move on to actually erecting the building. And the erecting the building can happen over the winter, it can happen next spring. But at least get the concrete done and get one step closer to getting that building up. So, this is a company that has done fairly decent work and thought it was a decent proposal. It's not an awesome proposal, but it's not an awful proposal as far as the amount for it. So, since they've done work for us. So that's why I'm presenting you this proposal from Alley Concrete for $6,800 for the caissons and then $10,000 for the flat work. If you would like them to go ahead and get both done, we can get that done. If you just want the caissons, that'll at least get us to the point where we can work out the next steps as far as erecting the building and actually getting something there.
I'd like to see them go ahead and get the concrete work done and put the anchor points in and just be ready for our next step on that. Personally, I'd like to do that. So I see a recommended motion here. If somebody'd like to make that.
I move to award the project bid to Alley Concrete LLC for the amount of $16,800 for the road and bridge building concrete pour, and authorize the police judge to sign the proposal.
You got a second somewhere?
Second.
Mary. Okay, so the first was Rob and the second was Mary, and that was for $16,800. All those in favor?
Aye.
And you guys were super fast, but I think I saw hands everywhere. So that's a unanimous. All right. We got here Parks Master Plan. And I don't know who wants to take agenda item number 3, but you want that, Kent?
Sure, I will talk about it. We had the Parks Master Plan. We had several steps in this Parks Master Plan, and it's been quite a long time coming to this ending point. The last part of it that has happened is that the Planning Commission held a hearing and they approved a resolution regarding the Parks Master Plan. And that resolution, Planning Commission Resolution number 1, Series 2021, would adopt the Parks Master Plan as part of the town's comprehensive plan. And then it recommends the Parks Master Plan to the Board of Selectmen. So that was presented a couple meetings ago to the Board of Selectmen. There was some requested minor changes by the Board of Selectmen to that copy of the Parks Master Plan. And we sent you a couple different copies. The final one was an electronic one. It's only 179 pages worth. that's a high resolution copy, and I can bring that up on the screen if necessary. If not, that's okay. I mean, we've gone through it a couple different times here now. But that's what is presented to you. The changes have been made to the Parks Master Plan, and it's presented for your approval of that planning. There's a part of that actual Planning Commission resolution at the end of it that if it's approved, then there's a signature by the police judge and by the town clerk regarding this as well. And there's recommended motions of whether to a move to approve or a move to disapprove or a move to approve it with some conditions. So as big as it is, I'd just stand for questions at this point.
Saw Deanne's hand up.
Yeah. I didn't see much in the way of planning for flooding. And like I was here for the 95 Rose Creek flow where they canceled 4th of July and we had to have it on September 4th because the runoff was so ridiculously high that it was running down the streets and flooding things. And Jackson's ended up picking their house up 2 feet and putting a new base under it because of the water and stuff. And that happened in the 80s also. Now there's every chance it won't ever happen again, but because it happened in the 80s and the 90s, there's a possibility it can do that again. And I don't see like some of the park stuff, like the lagoon thing over by Rich's, it's going to get pretty soggy if the water comes up like it did then. I don't see any.
Well,
you know,
yeah, I understand that. There is a national or a floodplain map with FEMA panels that shows all the properties in town as far as whether they're in the floodplain or not. The actual floodplain around the lagoon and lake is actually right next to the actual lake surface and lagoon surface because there is a dam outlet works. And there's a way to allow the flow to continue out. Now, there could be flooding in other parts of town. I understand that. But the dam outlet works were completed, what was it, 5 years ago, 6 years ago?
Yeah, something like
improved the dam gate and everything along with that. So there have been improvements to that, and I'm just going by the floodplain map itself as far as what it shows regarding those areas. Now there are other areas. Greenway Park can be affected a little bit regarding floodway. I think it does show a little bit on the map for the Greenway Park plan. The other parks, the new area on the southeast side of the lagoon, which is right next to Rich's house. We're going to talk about your house, Rich, all night tonight.
Right on.
There's a little beach area and it's intended to handle a little bit of additional height of the lagoon. That was part of the design of that southeast lagoon area. There is, as far as the other parks, I don't know of another park that will be directly affected because they're all off, they're not in the floodplain. They're all off the 2 creeks that run through town. And, you know, obviously the creek can jump its banks and go through like it can go through Orland Park because that's where it used to go. And the creek always wants to go where it went historically. It went historically through that area. But part of that's the underdrain system too, helps with that. So, but there's nothing specifically mentioned in this Parks Master Plan because it's more regarding the floodplain map and those type of things.
So it's also really just a conceptual kind of a plan rather than specific buildings and things. And if we were going to go ahead and build something, then we'd have to look at the floodplain map and get permits and everything else, right?
You absolutely have to make sure that it's above the floodplain level. And that depends on where the site is actually located, obviously.
So when the parks are, each park, when they're developed, we can address all those issues as they come up, I would think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and actually flooding that area next to my house is actually beneficial since it's gonna be there was a lot of residents in the meadows there that wanted to make sure that that stayed a wildlife wetlands area. So flooding isn't necessarily a bad thing in there. And I had engineering done in my house. And because it's on such a pedestal and it's higher, I think there's more danger of some of those new apartments getting wet before I get wet.
Thanks, Rich.
Well, and that wildlife area has kind of come back pretty well.
Yeah,
After
it
that
really
dredging
has.
project.
Yeah, that's awesome. Any other questions? One other question, Deanne?
No, it's not a question, it's just a comment. Kent was saying that the gate's been rebuilt so that it would release more water, but there are times when we've been asked not to release water so that Golden and other downstream places didn't get inundated.
Yeah, it does have
So
the height. Yeah, oh no, I agree with what your preposition is, Deanne, but there is a maximum height on that gate. And the maximum height, which I haven't memorized, but doesn't affect, it would spill over the spillway. The gate only goes up to a certain level, and then it would spill over the spillway, and it's actually at a height that before flooding would occur, there would be water going over that. So.
But it's still, there are no plans in the master plan about what to do, if we flood. And it's happened twice in my lifetime, so, it's a probability rather than a possibility.
No, I hear you, and I think that it's a good point. And I think for as far as this park's plan goes, I'm pretty comfortable with the fact that, it's just really conceptual. It's just kind of giving us a direction that we could go if we choose to build something. And then, like I said earlier, if you do that, then you're into the building. You have to go with all the different rules and building codes and whatnot. I see a motion here if somebody wants to give me that.
Make sure I got the right one.
While he's looking, I move to approve the Planning Commission Resolution number 1, Series 2021, adopting the Town of Georgetown Parks Master Plan as part of the town's comprehensive plan and recommend approval of the Parks Master Plan to the Board of Selectmen. That's not right.
Yeah.
We are the board.
Yep.
You are the board. It's just
But-
adopting.
To us.
Yes.
And I'll second that.
Okay, so I've got a motion and a second. Everybody in favor of this, raise your hand.
Aye.
I see 5. And any nays? 1. Deanne Powell's a nay.
I don't want to see this attached to our town's master plan until it's too theoretical. Every time I have a question, everybody says, well, it's just, and we'll put it off till later. And it's like, no, some of these things need answered first.
Okay. So that passes, and moving on. We're at ordinance number 5, mobile food vendors, first reading.
I can give a quick staff report on this if you like.
Please do.
You had a good recommendation, I thought, from the Business Promotions Commission, which had really done yeoman work in terms of really drilling down into specifics in their recommendation. You saw their written materials, I think, from last time. There was a good discussion about it. My charge was to sort of evolve that material. There's a lot of feedback. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing. Is there a TV on? No, I guess not. Okay. In any event, I tried to evolve that into an ordinance for you, which I have done, and found the right place for it. You have a section in the land use code on supplementary regulations, the things that don't fit anywhere else. It's not pure zoning. It's you know, regulating mobile food vendors, and that's where you put those things. And so I structured it that way and kind of reorganized the material that had been presented by business promotions. I really didn't change it much. There are a few places where I needed to kind of turn it into regulatory.
Excuse me, can somebody turn off their TV because it's interfering? Thank you.
So that I had to turn it into regulatory language, which I did. And in doing so, though, as usual, there are always a few things that you see the report and you write it up, but then it leaves you with, okay, well, what about this? And you don't really know that question until you write the regulation. And I spoke with Kent and we put down sort of 4 policy questions that are in that cover memo. Doubtless there are other questions the board would have. It's not like you have to take the Business Promotion Commission's recommendations. You can reject them, you can change them, you can adopt them, and largely they're adopted in this document, and it's a good starting point, but it's your instrument. And of course, it's first reading. So it's kind of an evolving thing. I do know that Kent and I would like direction from you on the listed items, numbers 1 through 4 at least. And I expect that there will be other corrections. My suggestion is you have, you know, a round robin discussion, and I'll be making notes as we go. And at some point, you'll be either ready to continue it to next meeting, keep talking, or take a motion on first reading to direct it be brought forward on second reading with following amendments 1, 2, 3, 4. So those are a couple of different doors. I do see that Amanda Cooper's here and might want to add to what I'm calling my staff report before you engage in board discussion. That's all I've got.
Thanks, Jerry. Amanda, do you have something else to add to that?
At the moment, no.
Okay. So we can just start knocking these things off with these questions. The first one's about annual licensing fee and daily fee. Presently, the draft uses $100 and $25 a day. Do we have any discussion on that?
And that was Business Promotion Commission's numbers. And I assumed that when they were saying $100 a year, you would have to renew. And then if you came in and said, I want to do a food truck for 7 days, you paid your $100 to have your food truck license for that year, but each day that you would be actually open and operating would be $25 as a part of that permit, is what I heard.
Yep, that's the consensus of business promotions.
Okay.
So is that enough for our staff, Kent, to, on the $100? Is it kind of, I mean, we don't want to hit people in the head too much to get this thing started, but does it sort of cover our costs?
Yeah, it's really what it's trying to do is match what's the annual licensing fee for the brick and mortar restaurants. And, you know, the brick and mortar have to pay more, but they're open the entire year. So it's trying to balance, okay, how much time versus there needs to be some sort of licensing fee. So it's, you know, they have to pay something in relation to what brick and mortar restaurants have to do. So.
And you got to process a little bit of paper, sending it on to fire authority and all that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm fine with that. It seems like a reasonable number. Any other comments?
Doesn't seem to be an insurmountable barrier to entry.
That's Deanne.
I'd like to know what their projected profit is for each day or something, what the percentage is of this $25 fee of what they probably will make, not you know, I mean, an outstanding day like Christmas market's gonna be high. But if they're there for some summer festival that this is the third day and there aren't that many attendees, what can they expect to make? What is this?
I can
Yeah,
respond.
go, Amanda.
In the research that Business Promotion's done, and also please accept my apologies that my brick and mortar restaurant kept me from the previous meeting, so I do apologize. The research that we had indicated that the majority of the food trucks that would be contracted to be coming into town would not be interested in coming up if they weren't guaranteed at least a $2,500 or $3,000 day. And depending on their PPR or PPA, excuse me, that's a pretty achievable number. So $25 is a pretty small drop in the bucket. There was one omittance on my part that was an oversight that there was going to be a cap on the fee. Basically, we didn't want it to become an insurmountable fee where if you had a truck that had a continuous presence in town, that their fee would end up being like $800 or something like that. So that would maybe be something for the Board of Selectmen to consider in the finaliz of the ordinance, but $25 a day is very reasonable for what these mobile food vendors are going to be doing.
Thank you, Amanda.
What would you estimate, Amanda? What do you estimate for like a food cart or a little stall, something like that, that's smaller than a truck?
That largely depends on, again, what we refer to as a PPA. So that's a per person average. And so, I mean, a popcorn cart is not, $25 is going to be a little bit harder. That is a consideration that maybe in a discussion about keeping the fees, we could talk about a sliding scale. The fee structure was very much written though, as to Kent said, with a brick and mortar comparison to a large scale operation. And so that is definitely a valid point that your average, like say popcorn or pretzel truck might not achieve that as much. But again, if they're going to come up and sell $1,000 or $500 in pretzels, then $25 is a fair cost for our staff time too. That's the piece of it that's hard. You have to put a price on what the staff has to do.
Can I throw in another comment on that, just for food for thought? We've had, for Christmas market, we've had popcorn vendors in the stalls, and those stalls cost the vendors $500, which encompasses both weekends. So that's even $125 a day for them. And granted, that's a big event, but those popcorn people are selling a heck of a lot of popcorn, and it's worth their money to be there. So let's not dismiss how many popcorn sales there might be just because it's maybe a lower value product or lower priced product to start with.
And one of the things that the board needs to remember is what we want to make money on. There is a fee structure, but what really makes money for the town is the sales tax and actually having the vendors come up and actually operate. If it becomes too high a barrier for them and they don't come up, you don't gain anything. So there's just a balance there, to try to encourage them to come, but not have it so easy that they're not paying anything versus people who've invested a lot of money in their actual location. And, but to still have something to say, hey, this is what's going to cost to do business. And then make sure that they pay the sales tax and become part of it. So,
right. Yeah.
I'd like to really encourage the smaller size vendors because they're more in keeping with our historical downtown. And I think that's, I don't know, on an average day, that seems high.
Well, I think we're kind of getting into the weeds here a little bit. Let's go ahead and get this ordinance ready so that we can actually move forward with this with Kent making decisions or where to put things.
Are we going on to section 2?
Yeah, and let's not do any motions yet, only because I'll make notes as we go, and I promise you I'll do the job I always do, which is to list what I think I've heard, and you can vote them up or down. On number 2, I will say that the way it's structured for a temporary use permit today, if you're going to get food truck, it's temporary use permit. And there's a pretty long road that you have to go through for appeals. And, you know, it's a food truck. And so the question is, does it get 2 new appeal processes, or do you stop at business promotions? I wrote it for the whole vote, you know, all the way through to Board of Selectmen, and this is a good choice for the Board of Selectmen. Do you want to be in the appeals business for a food truck? And you get to decide that. There's no amount of process you have to do or not here. So
would it go from, if we chose the business promotion, would it go from there to district court? I mean, you know.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay. Does the business promotion have any problem with being the appeal process?
I have a
Amanda?
problem with that. Business promotion is
just-
supposed to be promoting businesses. They're not supposed to be a judicial body. It's outside their intended purpose for them to be deciding who can and can't come in. They're supposed to be presenting Georgetown's businesses to the world.
Okay. I'd like to hear from the business promotion.
This was an interesting discussion as I read through this afternoon, and I certainly am not against us being the ultimate appeals board for, if that is the wish of the Board of Selectmen. I think that our interest is also in controlling the aesthetic of the town and making sure that we're representing the brick and mortar businesses and their interests. However, I think that the infrequency of our meetings could hinder that in some respects, because we are only a monthly body, and it wouldn't be fair for those appeals to be put into, say, if somebody had an appeal or an issue on the first Thursday of the month, they're not going to see the the Business Promotions Commission for 30 days. And so I don't know if it's the most efficient direction, but if it was the wish of the Board of Selectmen, I think it is enforceable.
Don, 2 points on that, and I appreciate that, hearing that. You have to understand that right now the code has appeals on temporary use permits going to Business Promotions Commission. It says that now. Now, I deleted that from the general code section, as you see. It just made it specific to food trucks, but that's the only appeal that Business Promotions presently has today for food truck temporary use permits. Go to Business Promotions. I hear Amanda's point about timing, but I will also say for boards that don't meet very often, now you've got an appeal, you trigger a meeting, special meeting to hear that appeal. That's commonly done, and I'm not weighing in on whether Business Promotions would like to have that task, and that's more for Amanda, but you're not locked into that 30-day schedule. But that also means, of course, that Business Promotions would have to schedule a special meeting to hear the appeal, and that's, again, completely a policy call for you, and you might want to hear from Amanda on how Business Promotions would feel about having to have a separate meeting just to do an appeal, because that's really what I'd recommend. You wouldn't want to deny due process to that food truck operator and make them wait 30 days. You provide that the appeal will be scheduled in 10 days or something like that.
What do you think about that, Amanda?
I think that special meetings are something that we're able to trigger, and I don't see a huge issue with that, but I would like to also know from the rest of the Board of Selectmen that process is something that the rest of the board's comfortable with. If the board's comfortable with it, we'll enforce it, because we want this ordinance to go through badly. The commission as a whole feels really strongly about it. We want to enhance the guest experience. We want to have new things happening here. So if this is a trigger point that will help that along, then we'll trigger meetings as we need to.
Mary?
I think there's some validity to what Deanne brought up, that even though Business Promotions is promoting the Georgetown businesses, we're certainly, Business Promotions is also recommending this food truck ordinance or food vendor, mobile food, saying it right, that's going to enhance all of our businesses and operations in town. I would also say that the board of Selectmen seems to be point of appeal on other matters outside of this. You know, if someone has a short-term rental permit that they're, you know, appealing the process, it comes back to us. And, you know, it goes through some of the other commissions, but ultimately it comes back to us. So I wouldn't see why this one wouldn't also.
Yeah, I think Deanne made a great point. And I wonder about putting that extra stress on the promotions board. You know, I did a lot of years with that, and it is kind of hard to put the whole group together. And we do meet every 2 weeks. I kind of think we're more able to do the review. That's my opinion.
Rob, Rich, Paul, we've heard nothing from you. What do you think?
Well, okay, I didn't think we were like giving the promotions board the ability to run the Hague. I mean, it was just, you know, food trucks for heaven's sake, fellas. I mean, geez. I mean, come on. I mean, we're not, you know, not like they're going to make laws behind our back, are they? But anyway, if it is tough for them to get together, I totally see that point. And, you know, John, if you think that it's a good idea, I don't mind.
Paul? Okay, Paul?
I'm kind of sitting in with what Amanda said. I mean, this is kind of like their baby. They know these vendors, or potentially know the vendors. They know the situation. They did all the research. And if Business Promotions is comfortable for an appeal to get the group together, and she says it's doable, then to me, it fits better that way. Instead of us taking on an appeal, and we got to do some research and figure out what's going on.
Well,
like
wouldn't we take
Rob
direction
said,
ultimately from promotions?
Hold on,
anyway?
one at a time.
Yeah, like Rob said, well, you know, we get directions from the promotions committee anyway, and like Rob said, they're not going to be making any rules or regulations, you know, officially without us. So that's my opinion. It's their baby. They're more familiar with it. And if Amanda and the Business Promotions is comfortable, says it's doable, then I think they should retain that responsibility.
Rich?
Absolutely. I think you have to trust that the business owners and that association has some, they have a lot of hay, I guess, in the barn there, Rob. And so they're going to want to make sure that it's quality stuff. It's not taken away from their business, and it's only enhancing the experience in Georgetown. So I have to trust in their judgment, I think.
That's a great point.
I could be swayed to go ahead and feel that way too, and let the Business Promotions give it a try. And if it becomes onerous or something, we can always change it back.
Either that, or is there a problem where it goes to BPC? I realize it's dragging out the process, but then they would in turn make a recommendation to the board, and then we could be the final, so that may make Business Promotions more comfortable not being that final say before the town perhaps incurs additional court costs if a mobile food vendor really wanted to push it to the next level. Just so that.
What are you thinking, Jerry?
Well, I mean, it's written that way now with basically 2 appeals. The town administrator makes the decision, just like short-term rental, and that's fine. And you need 1 staff person doing that. And then there's an appeal, either of a denial or of the imposition of conditions. You know, you don't appeal an approval, you know, ever. You'd be nuts to do that. And so I'm not sure, Mary, whether an appeal to promo, who then makes a recommendation on that appeal to the board, is that much different, frankly, than an appeal to promo, who makes a decision. If you don't like that, I mean, you still end up, what happens there is you're guaranteed to have to go to 2 other bodies after Kent's decision, right? Promo for a recommendation, then the board for a final decision. If you have 2 appeals, then you might just stop with promo, or you take out one of either promo or the board, and and say that's the end. So it's potentially more trips. I understand, Mary, your intention, and I respect it. It makes sense from sort of a let's keep the conversation going, but that does extend the time frame too. And I kind of hear the board here as being pretty divided on this. This may be one where you lay it aside and we'll come back and take an actual motion on the appeal process. I'm not trying to say to cut off your discussion, keep it going, but we've heard from, I think there's a range of views.
I have a feeling that if we are going to have an appeal process, that it should be streamlined. You know?
Yeah. I recommend that. And I feel I'm agnostic on the issue of who the appeal body is, but in writing it up, I thought 2 appeals is a whole lot of process for somebody to know, okay, is the answer yes or no? Just tell me.
I think if I could add one, I think if we would find ourselves in an appeal situation, it would be based off of pretty egregious actions from a mobile food vendor. It would be based off their inability to manage their trash situation, not have appropriate food handling guidelines in place, not pay their sales tax or file their sales tax legally and according to the statute, making people sick, causing a fire. I mean, we're not going to be like, well, I don't like tapas, so you can't come back. That wouldn't be the reason. So it would be, we would want something a little bit, we would use the statute. So if that helps anyone kind of buffer either way what they feel would be the best direction, that we would keep the language written into the actual ordinance to make those decisions. And obviously the recommendation of the town administrator.
Well, that might be part and parcel to what I was saying was that, if you're going to make the violation severe, it'll streamline the appeal process. That's for sure.
Yeah, to me, it seems like I guess I'm really falling towards the business promotion doing the appeal process. So I count Paul, Rich, and Rob. What about you, Mary? Are you feeling any different?
I can support either way. If business promotions wants to take that upon themselves, that's fine.
Want is a strong word. What will make the ordinance flow the most accordingly is
I guess I anticipate more of, a vendor applying and their initial application being denied for XYZ reason, as opposed to an extension on theirs or a violation that comes up where the town turns around and is saying you're shutting down because trash is awful and da 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 da. And I just think those elements take it to a higher level beyond any of the commissions that are set up within the town government, and that ultimately comes back to the board. If you guys want to take it on your shoulders, you get paid the big bucks, go for it. And Rob will give you his company car.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we got four kind of positives, one whatever. Deanne?
I think it's outside the purview of the business promotions. I think that they're supposed to be promoting, not judging.
Okay, fair enough. So you got what you need there, Jerry, to kind of move forward?
I'll keep making notes, and you have at least 2 more bites at the apple. At the end of this discussion is 1 bite, and it's first reading. So you got another bite at the apple in a couple of weeks, and that's the process.
Would it be pretty straightforward for them to have a hearing? I mean, would they be guided through that pretty easily?
I do administrative hearings all the time, for city clerks when there's a challenge on a nomination petition, et cetera. And there's a pretty straightforward way to, I help advise the clerk, and I'll say, in this case, it'd be business promotions. Here's a notice of the hearing that you should send out right away. And along with that notice, here's the time, place, and date where the hearing would be. Here's the order of events at that hearing, a little like the hearings that the board has done on on short-term rental applications, right, where there have been appeals. It's that kind of process. And that's what your staff is for, is to provide staff to promo to be able to set that hearing up and open it for them. And then they take the testimony and make a decision, and the staff writes up the decision. So no matter who's the appeal body, those functions will have to take place. And the staff, in the form of Kent, myself, and Jennifer, are the staff that staffs those kinds of, it's no different than staffing the regular work of the commission when you think about it. So that's not an obstacle. The policy choice for you is the one you're discussing. And as I say, I don't have an opinion on that. I'll make notes, and at the end of this discussion, we'll see if there's still a consensus.
Okay. So section number 3, section E, paragraph or parentheses 2, requires approval of adjacent business owner if the food truck is to be located adjacent. Is this appropriate, board?
And that was in Promo's recommendation, and I wrote it into here. It means that an adjacent business owner's got a veto, but I respect that. That's what I thought it said, but I wanted, because that's a pretty strong power, I wanted to make sure y'all were okay with it.
Mary?
I had a meeting with some of the business promotions representatives earlier to go over this kind of with a fine tooth comb, and we have a couple of suggestions when we actually get into the nitty gritty of the ordinance, but one of them addresses this. And I think the wording of that, it's really not adjacent business owners. It was brought up at the last meeting, and business promotions recommendation, they were more concerned with it being adjacent restaurants, or
okay,
or the technical term would be the license to operate a retail food establishment. So I think when we get into the nitty gritty of the ordinance, that was the intention of business promotions, as opposed to any merchant.
Okay. Very helpful.
Okay, fair enough. Deanne?
I have 2 comments. One of them is that I would like to see the words food trucks expanded to include carts and stalls and vendors and all of that, or just change to vendor, I don't know. Because this way it limits it only to a food truck. It doesn't allow for the carts, and I'm really pushing for the carts instead of food trucks. And the second thing is the adjacent business owner. Our downtown is so small that it could impinge on the next business over rather than the adjacent one. And so I think that needs also to be expanded to any business that has a problem with it. There's got to be an eloquent way to say that, but just the adjacent one, they might be happy as clams in mud, and the guy 2 doors down could be seething. We need to allow, it needs to cover all of the businesses. Anybody should be able to put in a complaint. If somebody's selling cotton candy and kids keep coming in their store and making it sticky, they need to be able to put in a complaint, even if they're nowhere near the business that's selling it,
Okay. So Kent, you're going to be, managing this. What do you have to say about the complaint process if there's a problem?
I think they always have the opportunity to complain. I think the question is whether they have veto authority about whether it's located there. That's an awful strong power, and that got to be careful, because someone could say, I don't want any food vendor within 2 blocks of me. And that would be a bit much. And so that may become, it's again a balance. You need the balance as far as the current restaurants need. And Amanda wants to say something pretty quick. She'll probably say it more eloquently than I will. But, if it's, you got to balance the needs of that restaurant with the idea that we want to enhance the visitor experience within Georgetown and have additional options. And if the only additional options are away from everything else, that's really not an option, you know. So, and what the discussion has been is that oftentimes more options generate better business for the restaurants that are there. So if there's an initial attitude, well, I don't want it anywhere close to me, and never allow that to happen, you can't ever see the effects of maybe it would have been a positive experience. And so that's why this wording of adjacent and veto, that got to be careful. So.
Yeah. Amanda?
So when we wrote in this caveat, this was probably the biggest struggle for us. There was the one piece that everybody agreed on was that we didn't want to see any mobile food vendor occupying a 6th Street or historic district parking space, if you will, with the exception of the street being closed. But there is basically kind of a common courtesy that we wanted to extend to brick and mortar businesses to say, hey, you're closed on Wednesday. We may have a truck parking in the Strauss Park parking lot, for example. And I'm using Wednesday as an example because there's actually, I think, 5 brick and mortar operating businesses that are closed on Wednesdays, including the one my husband and I operate. So being able to give the existing establishments a little bit of leeway to kind of say, hey, are you okay with this? Veto is a hard word, and I'm not sure. I mean, honestly, this was the biggest struggle for us because we want to be obviously respectful and conscientious of the people who are year-round investors in our community and our community's economy. But by the same token, if they're not open, or even if they are open and it's a Saturday and leaf season and we can't feed all these people, having another option is not going to hurt anyone's business. There are tons of studies done by the CRA and a lot of other strong economic backers of the hospitality industry that show that when you have more choices, you have more conviviality and people spend more money and it generates more sales tax. It doesn't bankrupt anybody to have additional food options. And I would look at Idaho Springs as an excellent example of that. Idaho Springs has over 1,000 seats between all of their restaurants, and they are still consistently running waits every day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. There's no one down there that's struggling. Obviously, in November, we're not going to have a bunch of food trucks here. In January, we're not going to have a bunch of food trucks here. But at the times when our tourists need the options, we can really open up a great way to give people an amazing impression of Georgetown while still enhancing the brick and mortar experiences that people are craving. Because there are certain things that food trucks are not going to provide. Somebody wants to have a beer, they can't do that at a food truck. They want a sit-down meal, they're not going to get it there. So this is a tricky thing, and I apologize to put it back on you guys, and Jerry specifically, but if we can find a kind of a language of compromise that brick and mortars can, get a little bit of feedback or notice, but that they don't have the ultimate veto power, I think that would be helpful.
Certainly could deal with it in letter E2 by, instead of the advance written consent, you could make it the advance written comments of adjacent businesses. Now, to be blunt, that puts it back on the administrator, who's then got to kind of balance that. But in part, that's, his job. And I leave that for the board to noodle on. I did want to make mention of the carts. I heard that last time. I wrote a definition that you'll see at the very first page of the ordinance that is of mobile food vendors that includes carts and lots of stuff. So I was intentional and I covered that. But with respect to the adjacent owners, your choices are, what's written here, which is giving some people problems in terms of the kind of veto aspect of it. But of course, another way to deal with that is to require the advance written comments. And then it shifts the burden over to the administrator. I don't have an opinion on this, but my job is to try to give you options to deal with what is clearly a sticky thing.
I'm pretty comfortable with having advanced comments with that. It seems like it kind of lets people at least voice their concern towards, something, and the administrator could take that into account. So I would be fine with that one. Other people? Anybody, Rich?
I think one owner down there could just kibosh the whole, the whole reason you want to have the ordinance. One person could make an argument adjacent is 2 blocks and they don't want to see any food trucks at all. And you're giving them the power, when you use the word veto, to throw all that effort by the business promotions out the window.
Okay. So Rob?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of see your point. How to remedy it.
Okay. Everybody see
Paul?
that?
Hey, John,
Paul's got his hand up.
Hey, Paul.
obviously it's worded in such a way that it's causing problems for us. In fact, one solution to me is that it's scratched, it goes away. There is somewhat of a, business owners give their opinion all the time to Kent, I'm sure. And so he's hearing that. But Rich brought it up very succinctly. If we have this written and permission and veto, business promotions is no longer in charge of this event. It is now the businesses. And Amanda brought up a very good point, that these restaurants and vendors are not competing with each other, but they complement each other. And we're trying to make that Georgetown more of a destination, like Idaho Springs. They're doing a great job. They're always busy. But our options are so few in Georgetown right now. This whole thing is to try to provide more options for the visitor experience. But so yeah, some businesses are not going to like it. Some businesses are going to say this, they're going to say that, say that. They're not the final word. That's why it's almost makes sense to scratch out E2. So my thoughts.
Okay, good. Others? Mary?
The conversation of business promotions around the adjacent piece was obvious, or not obviously, but it included a lot of the restaurant and beverage operators. And it came down to where they were comfortable with not setting a certain amount of footage, parameter for how a food truck or a mobile food vendor, let's start using that word, could come in. And so again, I agree with Rich. I think, one person could, try to put the kibosh on this. I think it's fine to gather any opinions on it. However, when the ordinance is actually written, we can get all the opinions we want, just like we do here at a board meeting. And, this is the one that's gonna, float.
Okay. Is that helpful at all, Jerry, to come up with something?
Well, we got a range of opinions here.
Of course.
There's three that I'm counting up, and y'all can count, but I'm counting 3 doors, right, Deanne? I think there's 3 doors on this one, or 3 general opinions. Oh, Kent thinks there's 4, but
No.
Deanne and I think that there's only 3, and one is that you got to get permission of the adjacent business owner, whether that's defined as the similar business or not. That's what you got to do. Door number 2 is you got to get the comments of adjacent business owners, and maybe we put like a foot radius kind of number that might be helpful. And door number 3 is Paul's suggestion that it comes out. So that's a wide, that's a wide range. And at some point, do you want to embrace those changes to make a choice now, or do you want to lay it aside and I'll bring it back in a minute when we're trying to circle the wagons on the whole thing? It might benefit from just.
Let's move
Pardon?
on.
I just want to add one thing. I mean, the business owners as a group, I guess I got to be careful, but just remember, they didn't want to close 6th Street. I don't know. I mean, I just don't know as a group if they have their own best interest at heart, because one of these food trucks placed in front of their business could actually drive business into their business. And they'll be the first ones to say, I don't want it. When in fact, in front of their storefront, it actually increased their sales for that day.
Okay, fair point.
I say we take it out. That's my opinion.
Maybe we do this straw poll wise, if you're okay with it, because at some point I'm going to have to decide what to write for next time.
Let's make decisions.
My idea is door number 1 is the adjacent business gets to say yea or nay. Door number 2 is its comments. Door number 3 is deleted. Right. And so while I realize you could, depending upon the door you end up with, you could like tinker with that door a little more, but let's at least figure out the door. So remember, it goes from most strict to least. 1, 2, 3. Everybody got that? Right. So if we go through the board here and tell me your number, then we'll see if we've got a consensus around a number. Remembering most strict to least. 1, 2, 3. John, go through the board.
All right. Deanne?
I like the idea of scratching it.
Okay.
You're
Number
you're 3.
3.
Okay.
3. Rob?
3.
Mary?
So let me clarify. Scratching it
Mary?
means we don't relate it, or we don't include it at all. There's no permission whatsoever.
Exactly.
Correct.
So
Comes
we're
out
not
of the
asking. We don't want a business owner's opinion.
It
Correct?
comes out of
They're
that
gonna
is door
give
number
Dave.
3.
Sure, I'll go for 3.
Okay.
Rich?
3.
Wow.
Paul?
2 is going to happen anyway. We're going to get their comments. So number 3.
Okay. Yeah, you
Yeah,
better
I'm
stick with 3. It was your door.
Yeah. I was hoping
Okay,
you weren't
Paul.
going to switch.
Who's left?
I'm for 3 as well.
Dynamite. I got
All
what I
right,
need.
guys. Good job.
I got what
Okay,
I
number-
need.
Question 4, the Business Promotions Commission recommended that nonprofits be exempt from some requirements. Staff believes most of the requirements should apply to all food trucks, parentheses, licensing, inspections, safety, operational requirements, permitted locations. It may be the only exemption for nonprofits should be the licensing fees. Okay, here we go.
I can speak to
You
that
want
one.
to
a
say
little
anything
bit.
about? Okay, go ahead, Rich.
We used to operate I don't know if you called it, it was more like a food tent in Colorado Springs, and we were making $3,000 a weekend on nonprofit. And it was very important to us to make sure that all the food handling certifications, water available, hand washing, all those type of things were followed. And it seems to me if you don't, you could actually have an unsafe situation with people handling food, especially during COVID, if they're not having to do all the operational requirements. And we made a lot of money. I used volunteers, but we met all those requirements. And the nonprofit made $3,000 a weekend selling burgers and dogs for $2 and $3. So I just think that just makes good sense to have that as part of it. And I think it's best for the public safety.
Okay, Amanda?
The intent of this language was actually very targeted, and what we were trying to avoid was, sorry, I have company now, was the school and the community center in particular, who are Christmas market participants, somehow getting lumped into this particular ordinance or language. because they've been around for so long. And I don't disagree at all, Rich, that food safety is critical, and that anybody who's out there handling food needs to be really conscientious. And having run the brat booth, I can tell you that that's why the brats don't get cooked in the brat booth. They get cooked at the school because it doesn't get hot enough down there. So that was really the intent of that particular piece of language. It was not to kind of open up the door for new nonprofits to be able to come in and do things, if that's helpful
I have
at
a
all.
question.
Okay. Jerry, you got any comment to that?
I can try to write that kind of exemption. You'll notice it isn't in there like at all now because I just didn't know. And
I apologize. I left that kind of vague, and I should have been
Yeah.
a little more specific. So I apologize.
yeah, no, it's and I can, if there's not objection from the board, I'm not hearing that there is. Maybe I might reach out to Amanda and see if I can get a little help with language. I'm still a little vague on exactly what I might be saying there.
Okay.
But you've got Deanne and Kent.
Let's see, Deanne, you got a comment?
I like the very last sentence that says just exempt the nonprofits from the fees. That seems good, because we do want to promote Boy Scouts and, the school, all that kind of stuff. And that would still cover what Rich was worried about with the health requirements and so forth. They still have to do that,
Okay.
What happens if it's some little kid with a lemonade stand?
Who knows?
We-
Kent?
We try not to make it go through the process and
There you go.
turn our eyes from it because it's more trouble than it's worth. There's two other situations as far as nonprofit examples. One would be the Heritage Center. They had asked, and it kind of works sort of, but that is a situation, and it's in a residential area. So it's not in commercial zoning. So that is another example of something that could come up with nonprofits. And the other one is across the street here with the Hotel de Paris with the National Colonial Dames. And some events that they might do in their backyard area. And they've talked about that, or Kevin's talked about that. So those are just two other examples. I agree with the community center and the school. And then it's just a matter, okay, that's another one that, to me, it could be, let's see how it actually works out. And we may have to address it in the future because you can't figure out every situation ahead of time. You can try, but you won't be able to. So.
Randy?
Good afternoon. I don't have my notes on this, but on this particular one, we do have other nonprofit groups that have other groups still as a benefit for them, but try to add on and attach on with their nonprofit status. HDI is a big one where they would try to do food and a lot of other stuff if they weren't obligated to follow the same regulations as far as safety. I'm not concerned about fees at all. It's just the safety, and especially to get past the fire department and in general for food handling safety. They're not always bringing in the most appropriate vendors when they do that.
I would be in agreement with the safety and stuff, and just the fees and whatnot. That seems negotiable to me. Other board members?
I have an idea. I agree, John. If you're a licensed food truck, for us to even accept them, they already have to pass all these safety regulations.
Yeah.
Okay.
And one suggestion I might make, it's just occurred to me, if there's kind of concurrence from the board on the idea, I think Deanne mentioned about just the fees, then when you think about it, the administrator also has the authority to impose conditions on the issuance of a permit. And that's really one of the places where you kind of adjust a permit to fit a circumstance that you can't really write into the ordinance very well. And it may be that it's not going to happen every time, but if it's nonprofit in a residential area, the permitting authority in the form of the administrator is going to be able to take note of that. And I know I'm being kind of vague here, but that might be one of the sort of elastic clauses that helps us figure out how to put, frankly, disparate kinds of, apples, oranges, and persimmons all in the same basket, which is our job here. And it's kind of hard to do. And that's why you have conditions that are specific to the apple versus the persimmon, something I've never had, but I'm told they're great by
Great analogy.
It features in Huckleberry Finn, right? Everyone knows that? Okay.
Historical.
So I'm taking too long to say, is it easy enough to just, for now, exempt on the fees for nonprofits?
Yeah.
No objections to that? Okay.
Start to start.
Yeah. I've got my notes on the 4 questions. Now, of course, there may be other aspects of the ordinance you want to comment on, and then we can circle the wagons and give me the direction I need to rework it.
Any other comments, Mary?
Want me to jump in on the comments on the actual ordinance?
Yeah.
I want you. Yeah, please.
Because you're first reading at this point, and so
you want,
we need to figure
right,
out if we're close enough on first reading. Yeah.
Okay, so section 1, paragraph C, the application required. And then subsection 1, the annual licensing and administration fee. I know we agreed on the fees. My suggestion is that we don't have these fees in the actual ordinance. Wouldn't that be more pertinent to the fee schedule that we established, so that if we need to change those fees, we're not opening up the entire ordinance? So can't there be some verbiage that just shows that back to the fee schedule that the town has every year?
We certainly can, although I will say, I'm usually a supporter of the fee schedule, so you don't have these fees sprinkled throughout the code. I'm with you on that. But in this particular case, it might be handy for Kent when someone says, hi, I want to do a food truck. What are the rules of the game? It's all in one place. I don't see anything wrong with showing it in both places. And we do that too. We can certainly take it out of this, but then they've got to go to in this particular case, it might be just more user-friendly for the odd mobile food vendor person to be handed a copy of the ordinance. Here are the rules of your game. Up to you.
I can just see that if we change it even, $5 or $10 on a daily fee, that we have to reopen this whole ordinance as opposed to just making the fee schedule. So that would apply to number 1 and number 2 under that application required.
I don't care. Thumbs up or down from the board? Thumbs up for Mary's idea?
Thumbs up.
I kind of like the idea of putting in the fee schedule, so it's, changeable.
Okay. Objections to moving it to the fee schedule? I don't see any. Okay, fine. We're moving it to the fee schedule.
So then subsection number 5, the parking and seating plan for customers.
Yeah.
Business promotions would just like to add if applicable, because sometimes it will be and sometimes it won't be, especially if it's a mobile food vendor cart. There may not be seating or parking, so it might not apply.
Objections to that change? Seeing none, you're on a roll.
Okay, the next paragraph right under that, where it starts to say the town clerk will be responsible for maintaining records of mobile food vendors.
Yep.
Would just make that more broad and say that designated town staff will be responsible. Right now, we're operating under the assumption that our marketing and events coordinator would be handling the bulk of this. So that just allows that opportunity to happen. If it's not that person or that role, then it could be the town clerk, or it could be anybody, or it could be
How about-
Kent in his spare time.
How about just delete the word clerk? Objections to
That
deleting the
sounds
word
great.
clerk?
Sounds great.
Okay, keep going, Mary. You're 3 for 3.
Okay, let's see, we're eliminating some of them because we've discussed them ad nauseum.
Your words, not mine.
Hold on, I know. So, let's see, I don't have page numbers on mine, I apologize.
It's fine. Section
So-
numbers are good.
I'm trying to follow that too. So, under time limitations, subsection F, which
Yeah,
I think, okay.
yeah.
We
Wait
would
a
like,
minute, which paragraph are we?
That's paragraph F in the middle of the 3rd page.
under
Found
time,
it, thank you.
under time
Yeah.
limitations, we would like to strike consecutive. That gives the opportunity, as suggested in an example earlier, that if a mobile food vendor wanted to come in every Wednesday for 10 consecutive weeks or 10 weeks, but just set up on Wednesday, that would allow them to do so within the parameters of the ordinance. So just strike consecutive.
Okay with me. That I think was word for word promo's suggestion. So up to
I
the
know,
board.
and we
Yeah.
kind of ironed that wrinkle out.
Objections to deleting a consecutive? I don't see any objections.
And then,
Jerry,
As a comment.
oh, sorry.
I would read that if you took out consecutive, that it would only be allowed to operate up to 10 days in any 1 year. And so that would only be 10 days.
But further on, it says
Yeah, there's
that there's an
discretion,
extension available.
right?
So,
But if you had, this says the limit is 10 consecutive days. But then you could do 7 days here, you can do 7 days in September, 7 days in October. And it doesn't go over that amount. It doesn't require any extension. Just a thought. But if you eliminate the word consecutive, how I read it is, it's only 10 days allowed for the full year. So, am I reading it wrong?
see, and we were interpreting it as 10 consecutive days, which would encompass 2 weekends and then the Monday through Friday kind of time period, or that would be an example. And so if someone wanted to set up, like we said, every Wednesday for 10, then that would be up to 10 days
Yeah.
within any 1 year period.
I agree with Mary that if you take out the first consecutive, then you got 10 days for this whole year, spend them wisely. Or you've got 4 consecutive weekends, maybe you take out consecutive there too, and use those widely. You can make them, you can use your days consecutively, in whole or in part, up to you. Right, Mary? Is that where you're headed? I think so.
Yeah, I mean, we were more focused on the 10-day period than the 4 consecutive weekends, thinking that, but that would be fine too. It would still fall, it would be consistent.
What if they're good and you want them more than 10 days a year?
But it could be extended. This doesn't say it can't be. There's a further sentence on there that it can be extended, but right now, to start off, it's 10 days.
I think it's gives the
Or
town
weekends.
more power to make a good decision.
Yeah, and then if they screw it up in 10 days or 4 weekends, then we don't invite them back. Okay.
Yeah, they're gone.
Okay.
So
Eliminating both references to consecutive, so you end up with a bank account of time that as the vendor, you use as you wish within that year.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, got it.
The next sentence just doesn't read well, and so I'm not quite sure what you're trying to say. This time limit may be extended by the town administrator in the his, her sole discretion. Just somehow the wording's got to clean up there.
There's too many ends. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'll take out
Okay.
second in. In fact, just take out the in. Make it In
Or
his or
in
sole
the-
discretion, okay.
Okay. Then under section G, the next one, license conditions,
Yeah,
subsection 5.
Okay.
And then again, subsection B,
yeah, the seating plan,
the parking and seating plan,
if
again,
applicable,
if applicable.
got it.
And I believe I've run out of suggestions for this first
Cool.
reading.
All
Okay,
right.
nicely done.
Anybody else?
Okay. We can try a first reading, or no, we're not ready. I'll do a first reading motion when you're all are ready, but you're not ready yet. So keep taking comments.
Deanne?
In that same last paragraph that Mary was just talking about, at section 4, says all mobile vendors will comply with yada, yada, yada. It needs to add and decorations, because last year, some idiot put cheap dollar store Santa Clauses all over the little corner where the library stage is, and it looked tawdry, it looked cheap, it looked crappy. They weren't historic, they were cheesy. And so it needs to comply with what we allow as decorations, like we don't allow neon and things like that, you know?
That could be considered signs too, which could be,
Well, I just would like it to specify decorations on account of somebody else will see signs as just the word, that's the name of their business or something, you know?
We certainly do that. It's limited, of course, by what's in local ordinances regarding these things.
Yeah, because
but,
it just
fine.
looked so cheesy. It was like, oh my God, what are these people thinking?
Okay. All right. Anybody else?
I have another comment. I
Okay.
really don't want to see the food trucks on 6th Street. And it's one thing if they're in the parking lot by the Hotel de Paris, or they're in the parking lot across from the brewery, or, you know, all of that, but not on 6th, because last year that looked so junky. It looked like, I don't know, West Virginia. It was awful. And food trucks, I have never seen a totally classy one. Most are painted up like the new Mustang and just stand out like a sore thumb. And the one that was there last year was like rusty and funky, and I really don't want to see them on 6th. They
Better
can
than a burned out restaurant.
But what?
Better than a burned out restaurant.
Well, we had both though.
Okay. I think we've got all our comments in.
Yeah, on 6th Street, that's when you just need to, I mean, that's a pretty hard edge, so it's either yes or no. And that's one that you should do a head count on before I incorporate it or not into this, my stab at an overall motion. And I believe 6th Street would be allowed, and let's look at where that is addressed, just to be clear. It's in letter E, permitted locations on the second and then third page. They're permitted to be on public property and rights of way. And number E1, and then E4, though, they work together. You'll notice E4 says you can't be in public in parking spaces unless the street's been closed. So that the E1 is streets. But if it's a parking space on a street, and that's largely, I think, 6th Street anyhow, then it's got to have been closed for an event. I don't know if there are any spaces on 6th Street that aren't parking spaces.
There aren't.
If that's the case, then it may be, I'm not trying to say this is all swell, but that may be that addresses in part Deanne's question, because it would mean you're not going to see him on 6th Street unless the street's been closed for an event. I just want to make sure you're aware that that's the structure of the ordinance and are okay with it. That emanates from Promo's recommendation. I see Amanda agreeing with that.
You're all good with that, Amanda?
Yes, that was the intent that we had originally hoped for, was that unless there was a full street closure in the historic district, that they would never be in a parking space or in front of a storefront.
Okay.
Well, understanding that it's first reading, a proper motion would be adopted ordinance number 5, series 2021 on first reading with the following changes: that the licensing fee and of $100 and $25 a day be retained, that the Business Promotion Commission be the final appeal body for appeals from the decision of the town administrator, that there not be a requirement of permission from adjacent business owners, that nonprofits would be exempt only from the fee requirements, that the identified changes by board member Smith, all of which I think were by unanimous consensus, be made, and that it be brought forward for your consideration on second reading.
I'll make that motion.
Second,
Okay, so we have a first by Rob and a second by Mary. Let's have a vote. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
aye.
And those opposed?
Nay.
So we have one opposed, Deanne, and everybody else is in favor. So the motion passes.
Okay, you'll see a revision next time. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry.
Yep.
All right, where are we at? Let's see. Supplemental budget, public hearing. Do we want to have a staff and then open the public hearing, or what?
Go ahead and open the public hearing, and then the staff will just be part of the public hearing. So,
Okay, so I'm opening this to the public hearing. And we should have Mary
talk about it.
answer any questions if anybody has any questions.
Okay, I guess.
Do you want to introduce anything, Mary?
I just want to say that this supplemental, this is the first one for 2021. And it's pretty much just to clean up and adjust for items that came after the budget, the 2021 budget was approved last December. There were some items that weren't included that we didn't know about. And it's just kind of cleaning things up for items that the board approved after the budget was approved. There'll probably be a second supplemental closer to the end of the year. But right now, these are large things that we've, in some cases, received the funding after the budget was approved, such as grants and whatnot. But if anybody has any questions on any particular line item, just ask.
Mary?
About halfway down the page, $800 for and under the reason additional audit fees. I'm just curious, why did we have additional audit fees?
We don't have a set amount that Cutler charges us. So when the bill came in, we had his bill, and then we have a pre-audit gentleman that comes in prior, and depending on what he has to work with, he charges too. I don't know off the top of my head. I don't think his was any more than it has been in past years. I can get the total amounts for you because I just got Cutler and Associates final bill that was in your payables this time, and I can total up what the charges, the breakdown was, if you like, and email it to all of you.
I just didn't know if we had a specific reason as to why all of a sudden we incurred additional fees in that area, but that's okay. The next item, why did we have the additional increase in liability insurance? Like, what happened? Or did they
We
just raise our
usually,
rates?
well, yeah, we usually do not have the final liability insurance quote by the time the budget's put together. So it just fluctuates, and pretty much it goes up every year, you know, little bit. I can think of maybe 2 years ago it went down, but just additions and cost of doing business.
And then just one more question, and maybe it's the semantics of the unanticipated revenues under the short-term rental permits. Were those amounts really unanticipated, or are we just reallocating it from that fund to the other funds to cover expenses?
Well, they were unanticipated because if you remember initially, the renewal fee was $250 for the license fee versus when the ordinance was changed for short-term rentals, it was increased to $500, the same as the initial fee. So yes, it was.
Thanks. Okay.
Yep.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Mary? All right, let's see what we got going here. Does somebody want to give me a motion to accept this then?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion to accept resolution number 10, a resolution of the Board of Selectmen for the town of Georgetown, Colorado, enacting a supplemental budget and appropriation in the fiscal year 2021. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. And I see that as unanimous. So moving on. Do we have a COVID update at all?
I don't have anything additional regarding our COVID update, but I don't have anything additional to say at this point.
Okay, and how about our budget calendar? I looked at it, I was fine with what was
Yeah, we
going
had
on.
just asked if there was any comments or questions or concerns about that calendar as it was set or presented to you, and asked if you had any comments at this meeting following that one.
Anybody have any problems with the dates or anything with the seeing everybody looking all right? Okay, so we're going to have an executive session. Somebody's going to have to put that up on my screen for me to read.
Yeah, there's two things. You know, we take a motion, and if that passes, then and the motion I've structured to adjourn the board meeting at the conclusion of the executive session. But we'll have to take 5 minutes in between concluding the public meeting and starting the executive session. And you all should have, let's just make sure everybody's got the link before we do the motion. Does everyone have the link for the Zoom link for the executive session? Anybody that does not? Deanne, you have yours?
I'm looking to see, hold on a sec. I had to kind of get away from that page and go to one that was relaxed. Yeah, I believe I do.
And if for some reason it doesn't work, or if anyone, don't hesitate to text me or even call town hall.
Click here to join. I've got it.
Perfect. The way I suggest, I don't have somebody to make the motion because usually that's John. But why don't I just state the motion and somebody can say so moved. Usually Rob is good about doing that. So the proper motion would be to move it to go into executive session for a conference under section 246402(4)B and F CRS with the town attorney and town administrator to receive legal advice on and for a personnel matter, town administrator contract. Further move to adjourn the board meeting at the conclusion of the executive session.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second, okay, Mary seconded. Rob got the first, Mary got the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Looks like we're going to executive session.
Okay, so
Yay.
maybe everyone wants maybe 10 minutes.
Sure.
10 minutes. I gotta give the dog some more treats because she's driving me nuts here.
So
what
is
do
that
we-
8:05?
8:05?
8:05?
Be there,
See
be
you there.
square.
See you there, be there,
Bye,
be
guys.
square.
There, be square. Thank
I
you.
said that. Bye.